Hi, my name is Huckleberry and I'm an author. When I got done writing my first book, Wolf Healer, I wanted to get it published, and I had no idea what that meant. It would be like putting a 6-year-old in a kitchen and saying, hey, cook a 5-course French cuisine menu. It would be like putting me in a kitchen and saying, cook a 5-course French cuisine meal. It was an impossibility. I was like at the bottom of a mountain, and even the foothills were beyond my comprehension. So I talked to a lot of people who also had no idea what to do, because I didn't know people who had written books. I didn't know people who had published books. I was just this person who had this thing in front of them, and I didn't know what to do with it. So then I started Googling, as we all do, and it led me to massive amounts of information that didn't help. So one person said, why don't you see if you can find writing groups who around town? And I'm like, okay. So I found one, and I found out where it met. It met at a bookstore, and I crashed it. And that very first meeting, I just sat there and I listened to what they did, because they didn't know what to do with me. I brought all my stuff, but that didn't mean anything, because the only way they would have been able to help me is if they had had my stuff and could have read it and critiqued it before that meeting. I didn't know any of this stuff. What do I know of English and writing and critiquing? And this was all beyond my understanding. So then they put me on the rolls, added me to their email, added me to their website, and explained everything to me. So then they took my first chapter. The group was bigger than people meeting every 2 weeks. They met every other week, and not everybody came. And so there was good in this group and there was bad in this group. One of the bad was, again, not everyone came every other week, which meant people didn't read every chapter a person submitted in a book, which meant it was hard for them to know the full story. That was one issue. The other issue was there was enough people in the group that if I submitted the first week of October, I might not submit until the third week of November, because there was just too many people, which meant my book would not get edited this way, reviewed, critiqued for a very long time. It just was a very slow process. I didn't know what was the right process for something like this, so I just kind of went with it. It all seemed okay. There was enough core people who went every time that overall people knew what was going on, but even the people who did go every time, once you were 4 and 6 weeks in, they were like, oh, I don't remember you talking about this before. And it's like, well, I did back in chapter 3 and we're now in chapter 7. Then the leader started telling me I needed to get my chapters pre-edited. He didn't say this to other people, but I'm the dyslexic one. So and so I did. I remembered seeing on Facebook one of my Facebook friends saying, I just wrote a book. And I was like, okay. I asked her and 2 other people, and she was like, sure, I'm fine with that. I have no idea why she said yes. I was very thankful and grateful and lucky that this person said yes to me, but she did. And she started pre-editing. Then the leader said to me, well, it's better. However, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start doing the first page of your submission, and then you take whatever I tell you and you push it forward through the rest of your submission. Okay, first of all, I've worked with a lot of editors at this point. That's not how it's done. Second of all, again, I am dyslexic. That's not how my brain works, and it's very insulting. I sent him an email saying, okay, here's the deal. I am dyslexic. This is how my brain works. And what you were saying to me gives me massive anxiety. I would prefer you not reading my selections, not critiquing them, because what you are doing is doing more mental harm to me than helping me with my book. And then for the next 2 months, 3 months, he didn't. And I was pretty grateful that he had taken my email, taken my words, and heard me. And then I got 5 submissions all back with the same, I've read through all your stuff. I've gone through the first 2 paragraphs. Please take all of my edits and go forward with them. And I just wanted to scream because he hadn't heard me and he didn't believe me. And so then a man who came, I don't know, once every 3 or 4 months, every whatever, and he wrote poetry. He did not do urban fantasy. He didn't do queer urban fantasy. This man was probably in his 70s. He came in and we were reading through his selection, and he got to a paragraph in one of my chapters and said, which is ironically a very emotional chapter, and he said, this one paragraph reads like soggy oatmeal. And I remember thinking, I don't know what to do with this. He also asked a question about something. Now this is like chapter 19 or 20 in the book. And he's like, oh, now I know I haven't read anything since chapter 2, but I really think you have to make sure you cover this topic before you get to this, what you're talking about now. And I'm like, well, in the last 17 chapters, I have. I didn't say that. I thought it. I can be diplomatic at times. But I'm like, soggy oatmeal, and you haven't read the last entire book and you're critique. Okay, that finally pushed me over the edge. I went to Facebook, I started searching writing groups, and I found one, and I posted the chapter with the soggy oatmeal comment. And I said, hey, I don't know if anyone can help me, but this is really confusing to me. And somebody read it and said, I love this chapter. It's powerful. It's emotional. I would like to read all the chapters before this. I beta read, and I usually do it for money because she's a really, really good beta reader. But I do one free one a month. I have room next month if you are willing to wait. Yes. So she beta read my book. Then the following, so now we're like in December of 2020. So a lot of this stuff had been remote at this point. Then we get into January of 2021, and somebody else on that same page offered to do a free edit. And I threw my blurb in. I had no idea what I was doing still, but I get this offer and I put in my blurb. And I don't know if anybody else did, but then I get a message from somebody saying, I have left that page because of some pro J.K. Rowling's comments that I am thoroughly against. Now, this is back in 2021. This is way before anything with her came up. I need to know your opinion about trans rights before I can offer you the free edit, because this is something that's very important to me. Now, it took me a few seconds to answer because one of the characters in Wolf Healer is trans, and my moms are lesbian. I have my best friend is actually yes, but I have friends who are gay and trans and lesbian. My son is panromantic. My other one is asexual. The queer has been my world my whole life. It is just why everything I write is queer, is because I feel queer is the world we live in, and queer is what we need to represent in all of our books, because that is where we are. And the fact that it isn't represented in books is a shame, because everybody has queer friends and queer neighbors and queer associates. Even if they don't realize it, if they don't know it, that means that they have been toxic enough that people are uncomfortable around them. So I said to this person a little bit about it, and it took a while before they had room in their schedule to edit. And this editor now has become one of my closest friends, because they are trans, and they are also an excellent editor. And they edited the book, and they love the series. And it has been a great relationship, a great friendship. And I lucked out. I lucked out with that beta reader. I lucked out with the editor. I did not luck out with that group who was toxic and did me wrong, but they did lead me to the right place. That editor, who's my friend, did bring me to a writing group where we broke off and formed a new one. And that writing group has been a community for us ever since 2021. So the last 4 years, we have bonded and helped each other and grown together. And it's lovely. It is just an amazing group, and we all help each other and ask questions. The core group has grown, it has shrunk, it has grown. We do invite people in when we feel that they'll mesh well with us. A few people have stayed, a few have decided that we talk too much, because when you get introverted people together who are comfortable with each other, they never stop talking. But at the end of the day, that's where my path has led to, and that's how my book ended up becoming what it is. These critiquers, the woman who was pre-editing is part of that group, part of that community. And then I did try to get Wolf Healer traditionally published. It didn't work, but this community helped me figure out through the beta reader who self-publishes, my editor who had a self-published book, and this group, we all worked together and figured it out. And now here I am, many published books later. If you are still here, thank you for hearing my story of how I went from sitting at the bottom of a mountain of purely unknown anything to having many published books. If you have any questions, ask. I am more than willing to talk about any of these pieces. And subscribe.